So, hey everyone, it's really nice to see you all here. So, my name is Eduardo. We are broadcasting directly from the beautiful and rainy the Netherlands, Amsterdam today. And I'm really, really glad that you could make this webinar. It's really nice to see you all here. So, welcome everyone. So, we are going to discuss today a little bit about Lean-Agile architecture. So just a little bit about myself. So my name is Eduardo Alvim. I'm working for Gladwell Group as a senior SAFe program consultant and trainer. And I'm going to be your host for today. And probably you have already seen this agenda because you have received by email. So we are going to talk about Agile architecture. We are going to talk a little bit. We are going to discuss about Agile and architecture itself. So are they compatible or not? Can we have some kind of compromises between them all? Are they effectively working together? And we are going to discuss a little bit about that. Also, we are going to discuss a little bit about emergent design and intentional architecture. And then last but not least, we are going to talk about the architecture runway and about funding, or how we are going to ensure that we have the right amount of money and time in order to keep the architecture runway alive. Okay. So tonight I have working with me as a moderator. So we have my colleague Johanna. So feel free to send your questions anytime. So don't hesitate. If you have questions, send her through the chat, and I'm going to do as much as or the best I can in order to try to answer your questions. Okay. So just to start, so Gladwell Group, we are a company that is based in the Netherlands. We have offices also in the United States, in Boston, also in Paris, France, in Bangalore, but the headquarters is here in Amsterdam. So we are a company that works with digital transformation for helping other companies, big transformations for digital. And we help these companies transition from one way of working to this new way of work, using Agile as a tool, and SAFe as well as a tool in order to do that. And as you can see, we work in many different fronts. And also we do some consulting, and we do some training as well. You can see that we teach most of the portfolio from Skillet Agile company as well. But before starting, I would like to get to know a little bit about yourselves, so as I can understand and I can literally direct some of my comments on some of the topics. So we are going to start some polls. So what about yourself? Do you have any experience with any Agile framework for Agile at scale, for instance? So can you please vote? I'm just going to wait a little bit. Just waiting for the last ones to vote. Ten seconds more. Cool. So I can see that most of you have already some experience working in Agile, or at some sort of Agile at scale. This is really interesting, because then you know what are the problematics that we face when we talk about working in Agile at scale, and also when we have to treat about the different architecture subjects on a scaled agile environment. So a little bit more precision. So we are going to have the second poll now. I just want to understand a little bit more of this scaled agile frameworks that you have. So which kind of framework or which framework of agile at scale you use? Some seconds more. Ten seconds just to finish voting. Okay, so let's see the results. Oh, awesome. So most of you have already some experience in SAFe or Scaled Agile framework. So I'm very glad to see that. We have some experience with the Scrum of Scrums, and we also have a mix of many different Agile at scale frameworks. This is really interesting. But in order to advance a little bit more, so now that I understand that you have some sort of experience on Agile at scale frameworks, let's just look at a little bit what traditional architecture versus Lean-Agile architecture means. So according to the ISO definition, the traditional architecture seems fundamental concepts or properties of a system in its environment embodied on its elements, relationships, and in the principles of its design and evolution. So this is how the traditional architecture is defined, and this is how we have been dealing with architecture subjects from the last years. But if we look a little bit on what SAFe says on the about Lean-Agile architecture, it says that it's a set of values and practice that support the active evolution of the design and architecture of a system while implementing new system capabilities. With that said, we do not deny what is said on the traditional architectures, but in fact, we go a little bit beyond. We complement that because we understand that the architecture is also something that is going to evolve as we learn from the system that we are delivering. And we need to understand that as we learn, we need sometimes to adapt more or less depending on the learnings that we are going to have along the way. So the architecture that we are going to define needs to be flexible enough in order to take into consideration about these new learns or these new capabilities of the systems that we are going to try to that we are building and so on. So in this sense, for instance, we have to really let some options open in order to take into consideration these new things. And if you look at the SAFe big picture, we can see that a big part of it is about enablers, but also about the architects. So as you can see, we have 3 roles in SAFe, which is very interesting because with that, we recognize the architecture and the technical aspects needs to be treated seriously and in the same way as we have the features, the business features, for instance. So you can see, for instance, in the big picture of SAFe, we have enablers everywhere. So we are talking about different technical aspects on the portfolio level, on the large solution, on the program level as well, and the same way as in teams, for instance. On teams, we have stories and we have enablers the same way as on the different layers. And we have the different roles of architects playing a very important role in this sense. So from the very top on the portfolio until the program, we have architects being a very important part on this game. So what are these guys and what they do? So the enterprise architect, so his objective is to align the business with this, align architecture with the business strategy. So this is the one that is going to ensure that we are going to align the strategic themes or the strategy of the company with the systems that we are delivering, that we are building, in fact. Also, the solution architect is going to plan the architectural runway for a full solution or different levels of big solutions that we are building. And we have the system architect that is going to plan the architectural runway for the trains on SAFe. So 3 different roles working on the 3 different levels of SAFe that has a very, very important role to play. And just remember, most of you already know about SAFe, but for the ones that are not aware about SAFe, so the architecture runway is the components and infrastructure that enable continuous delivery of business features and functionality. So it means how we are going to develop our system, and based on the components and infrastructure, how much we are going to invest on the infrastructure and components and so on and so forth. So with that sense, and when we talk about Agile and Agile, Lean-Agile architecture and so on and so forth, so the first question that we start to make is, are Agile and architecture are 2 compatible beasts? So this is usually, when I teach these trainings, the type of questions that people start make. So can we deal with architecture? Can we deal with architecture in Agile environments, or even more in scaled Agile environments? So this is a very, very interesting question. And in fact, the answer is yes, of course. And even if we don't talk about Agile at scale, for instance, we have to remember about the principle number 11 of the Agile Manifesto for Software Development, when we talk about the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So this is what we are talking about. We are talking about technical excellence. We are talking about architecture. We are talking about technical aspects that we need to understand from the beginning, and we need to work with them the same way as we work with feature and business features, for instance. The big question is to find the good balance between business features and also technical enablement. So in that sense, for instance, another question that the people that usually comes to this kind of training, they say, yeah, it's interesting. If we talk about the emergent design as it's described on the Agile Manifesto, they say, oh, wow, effectively, this is really nice. And we understand that every team should practice. But when we are in a scaled Agile environment, or when we are working as a team of teams, or even more, team of teams, what should we do, or what should we not do? So usually this is a question that comes in every single training, because people want, of course, to understand. They are not really sure of if this is effectively compatible. And then, in fact, one of the possible answers is we have to balance the emergent design and the intentional architecture. So we need to understand what is it that the teams, they can decide by themselves, or the design that we will merge from the self-organizing Agile teams with the intent that is defined by the different levels of the architect. So enterprise architect, solution architect, and system architect, for instance. So it's interesting, but it wouldn't be possible to have, try to imagine we have 10 or 12 different teams working on the same train or team of teams, for instance. It would be very, very difficult for them to start working by themselves, defining their own design and architecture for the system that they are trying to build. But do they make sense altogether? Do they make, are they serving to a purpose, or a big purpose, for instance? And then there is the intentional architecture comes onto the picture, in fact, that is defined by the different architects or the different levels of architects that we have on the SAFe enterprise, for instance. So this is a set of purposeful planned architecture strategies and initiatives which enhance solution design, performance, and usability. So they are going to set the mission, they are going to set the vision for the teams on how they grow and how they implement the architecture as well. And lately, we have the system architect defining the architecture in a way that will be implemented by the different teams. So with that, we are going to keep the self-organized teams proposing design solutions and still working on their scope, but we also going to give them a real purpose in order to fulfill a vision and to move towards this one. So this is really, really important for these teams. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to have different designs emerging from different teams. But now, if you think a little bit about that, and if you think that we have to evolve the architecture and we have to deal with these technical subjects along the way, and if you put yourself in a position that you are starting to work with product managers or solution managers that are proposing business features in order to deliver real value to the customer in the sense of what they can effectively see and touch, for instance, the question that comes is, how are we going to compete with them, or how to ensure the appropriated funding to keep the architecture runway alive? So that's another very important question in this sense, because in most of the cases, for instance, that I've seen, companies, they usually prefer doing some sort of functional features, delivering the business value to their customers that they effectively can see and they experience. And most of the times, what is technical, what is about architecture, is left aside and to do whenever we have some time. But that's not the right way of doing things, especially when we are working on creating new and big solutions, for instance, okay? So the question is how we ensure the appropriated funding to keep the architecture runway alive. So the first thing, and one of the most important, is try to obtain the alignment between the different parties in the company. So if you are working on SAFe, for instance, you know that business owners, the enterprise architect, solution architect, system architect, solution management, product management, and all the different stakeholders that are in charge of defining what has to be built, they need to be aligned, they need to sit around the table, and they need to discuss. The issue with that is that everyone has its or his or her own opinion, and we are not going to be able to reach into a consensus. So then it comes the second point here. All the decisions must be taken based on the economics, or for the ones that know about SAFe, or the weighted shortest job first, or which kind of job or task that we should do first that will bring the biggest amount of value in the shortest lead time. So this is what we have to define. What are the economics of the decision? And instead of just taking decisions based on gut feeling, or what we used to call the hypo prioritization, or the highest paid person opinion. So when we talk about economics, we have set the ground and we are going to talk about the same thing. And then we are going to wait and we are going to start comparing also business features and technical enablement in the same way, having the same basis. So whenever the economics comes onto the table, we are going to discuss something and we are going to start comparing what we can enable first and what we can do later on, for instance. In that sense, we need to understand that business features and technical enablement have exactly the same weight, and both of them, they need an economic evaluation. But when we talk about technical stuff, we are going to probably talk more about time criticality and opportunity enablement or risk reduction, for instance, okay? Just a little bit, some words on the economics. So For the ones that are familiar with SAFe, SAFe has a very interesting way of calculating the economics of the decision, so as we can sequence the jobs. So that's what we call the weighted shortest job first. That will give us an idea of what we need to do first that will bring the biggest amount of value, for instance. And then we have a formula to calculate that, that is the cost of delay divided by the job duration or the job size. And for the cost of delay, in fact, we have another small formula in order to do that. So we need to understand what is the user business value, or what is it that the customer will get out of this task or job that we are going to do. We need to understand as well about the time criticality. So should we do right now? And if we don't do right now, what is going to happen, and things like that. And we need to be able to measure that. And last but not least, we need to understand, are we trying to avoid any risk, or are we going to enable some new opportunities? We are going to get some new markets and so on. So when we put all of this kind of different elements on the table, we all understand how things are balanced in this sense, and we are going to start talking on the same basis. And all of them we are going to use as well as a function of the job size. So we are going to define what is the work that we need to be doing first in order to deliver the biggest amount of value in this sense. With that said, we are going to be able to effectively define, is it better to do some enablement for future opportunities right now? Then we need to invest a little bit more on architecture during one PI or during a given amount of time, or do we need to invest more on these features and this kind of thing? So this is how we are going to keep the architecture runway alive as well. So we are going to start talking about economics and bringing alignment around all of this. And if you think about that and how we are going to express that, for the ones that are already familiar with SAFe or the different levels of SAFe, as I've said before, we have the different, in the different levels of SAFe, we have the enablers, which are technical tasks that we are going to do in order to enable features to deliver value to the customers. And then you can see, for instance, that SAFe says that we have 4 types of enablers. So we might be working with infrastructure enablement. We also have some exploration enablement, some types of research and prototyping or different solution alternatives. We are going to explore a little bit what are the options. And we are going to take some decision when we have to take this decision, not before, not after. And we are going, another type is effectively the architecture ones, or the ones that will improve and will build the architecture in a way. We have some proof of concepts, we have some kind of job in this sense. And last but not least, the compliance, because when we talk about this big solutions that we are building, compliance becomes a very important subject for us. And then we need to understand how we are going to track them, how we are going to record them as well. So compliance for us, it's a really important subject here as well. And how we are going to express all of that, or where are we going to store all of that. So in SAFe, for instance, we have what we call the solution intent, that is a real repository for managing and communicating all the knowledge from the current system and the current solutions that we are building, and also the ones that we are trying to build, or the future ones. And this is the single source of truth for the entire behavior of the solution. So you can see, for instance, that we are going to store all the specifications in terms of capabilities, features, epics, stories, NFR standards, for instance. We are going to talk about, we are going to store the designs on models, design decisions, trade studies, and so on and so forth. So we are going to store there, and we are going to record all of them as well on this solution intent. And also, all the documents about compliance and contractual obligations, they are going to be stored here, and it's going to be accessible by everyone. This is very important thing, bringing transparency and alignment, because everything is open, everything is accessible by everyone. So this will bring also some alignment between the different parties. Remember the different parties that I have described before. So business owners, which are stakeholders of the arts or stakeholders of the systems that you are trying to build. Product management, the different architect roles, system architect, solution architect, enterprise architect, and all the different parties that are really playing an important role on this solution development that we are doing. So something that I would like you guys to remember about this topic. So when we handle architecture subjects on any scale of agile environment, so the first and most important point is business features and technical enablement have the same weight and importance. So this is really important. So we need to talk about that. We need to discuss about that. And we need to understand that we have to have all of these things in the same weight, and we are going to discuss about them having the same basis. And in order to have the same basis, of course, we need to define the economics of every decision, because otherwise we are going to discuss based on gut feeling or the hypo prioritization. So we need to define a way to measure and track the economics of each and every single decision. So with that, we are going to also bring alignment, and we are going to have the same basis for discussion. And last but not least, so we are going to look for alignment between the different parties. So once we decide, once we are in agreement that business features and technical enablement have the same weight, we have assessed the economics of each and every single decisions. We know what we have to build before and what we have to build later, or the sequence of the job. We are going to have an alignment around the different parties and all the decisions taken in this sense. Okay. So, do you have any question? I'm not sure. Do we have any question on the chat? Let's wait 10 seconds for any outstanding question.
I have a question.
Yep.
What about the architecture governance?
Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean by architecture and governance? Just a little bit about this while we wait for more precision on that sense. It's for experience, we understand that when we talk about governments, for instance, we have a very important topic, which is the architecture, because we have compliance, we have regulations, and so on. So one of the things that is really important in this sense is define the solution intent. So that part that I have shown you right before, which is the source and the repository to store everything and every single decision, the different options that and decisions that we took about the systems as well. So this is where we are going to store all of that. I remember that before the webinar, I've got a question about architecture bodies or groups of people deciding about architecture. Unfortunately, this is not something that we have on SAFE, but it might be a good practice as long as you understand the principles and you understand that we have to define the intentional architecture, and also the emergent design, we have to let the options open as well for teams and so on. And one of the things that is really important is to record all of them on the solution intent. Yes?
Yeah, there's a specification now. Alan is specifying, we still need bodies to validate the design decisions. SAFe recommends a collaboration model, but we need traceability and evidences. Is the solution intent the architecture repository?
Yes, it's not only, so the question is, I'm not sure if you all hear, but the question is the solution intent to a repository to store the architectural decisions and so on. So yes, this is where we are going to store all of these decisions that we are going to take, all of the options that we have evaluated and so on. So this is effectively the place where we are going to store all of this. Do you have any other question?
Piers asks, will the slides be made available?
Yes, they are going to be available. We are going to send you guys an email with the recording and the slide set as well, somewhere between today and tomorrow. European time, of course. So if you have any other question, don't hesitate. You have here my email as well, my contact. So send me an email at eduardo.alvim@gladwellacademy.com anytime, and it will be a pleasure to answer all your questions as well. Okay, so thank you very much for having joined this webinar. So we are going to send the PowerPoint and also the record, the registration of this webinar tomorrow. So feel free to join me and to reach me anytime. Okay.
Offer. The limited offer.
Oh yeah, my colleague Joanne is remembering me that we have a limited offer to get 10% discount off from your next course. You just need to go to gladwellacademy.com website and use this code webinar/10, and you are going to have 10% of discount on your next course. It's a limited time offer. It's really, really interesting as well. Okay, so thank you very much. See you guys. Bye.